The stars had always been kind to humanity. For 300 years, humans spread across the galaxy like seeds in the wind. They built colonies on distant worlds. They made friends with alien species. They traded, laughed, shared their music and art with anyone who would listen. Admiral. Una stood on the bridge of the UES Eternal Dawn and looked out at the stars she loved so much. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. Her uniform was simple. Her medals were few. She did not look like a warrior because she had spent her whole life trying not to be one. "Another day of peace," said Commander Tayun, her second in command. He was tall and young, with sharp eyes that never stopped moving. The Valori ambassador sent another message. "They want to discuss trade routes. They always want something," Una said softly. "But we will talk. We will always talk first." This was humanity's way. Talk first. Fight last. Show kindness, even when others showed none. The galaxy thought humans were weak because of this. The galaxy was wrong. Far away, on a beautiful blue and green world called New Busan, life moved slowly and happily. The colony had been built by Korean settlers 200 years ago. Now 2.3 million people lived there. They grew rice in floating farms. They built schools and hospitals. Children played in parks while their parents worked and dreamed of good futures. Governor Racine walked through the capital city that morning. She was an old woman with a warm smile and hands that had worked hard all her life. She had just signed papers to build a new children's hospital. It would be the biggest one in the sector. "The foundation ceremony is next week," her assistant said. "The children are very excited," Eugene laughed. "Children are always excited. That is why we work so hard for them." She did not know that she had only 72 hours left to live. The Valori Empire watched humanity from the shadows. They were a proud species, tall and covered in dark scales. For 10,000 years, they had conquered world after world. 40 species now served them as slaves. The Valori believed that the strong should rule and the weak should kneel. Overlord Krovik sat on his throne made of bones. Yes, real bones from the species he had defeated. He was the most powerful Valori alive. His eyes were red like fire, and his heart was cold like space itself. "Tell me about the humans," he commanded. His advisor stepped forward. "They are soft, my lord. They spend more money on medicine than weapons. They make art instead of armies. They talk when they should fight," Kravik said. "Like all prey animals, there are some reports that they have hidden weapons, old things from their past wars." Krovik laughed. It was an ugly sound. "All species have old weapons. It does not matter. Send the fleet to their colony world, the one called New Busan. Burn it. Kill everyone. This will show them what we are." "Should we send a warning first, my lord?" "No. Prey does not deserve warnings." The Valori fleet came out of nowhere. 100 warships appeared in the sky above New Busan, like demons from a nightmare. Governor Hyjin was eating dinner with her granddaughter Hannah when the first bombs fell. The sky turned red. Buildings fell like toys. People ran and screamed, but there was nowhere to run. The Valori ships fired again and again. They did not aim for military targets because there were no military targets. New Busan was a peaceful world. It had no weapons, no soldiers, no defenses. It only had families. Hyjin grabbed Hannah and ran toward the emergency shelter. Fire was everywhere. She could hear children crying, mothers screaming, fathers trying to protect their loved ones with nothing but their bare hands. "Grandma, I'm scared," Hannah cried. "I know, little one. I know." They almost made it to the shelter. Almost. A Valori soldier appeared in front of them. He was huge, covered in black armor, holding a weapon that glowed with deadly light. Hyjin pushed Hannah behind her. "Please," she said. "She is just a child." The soldier shot her without a word. Hannah screamed. She screamed until another human grabbed her and pulled her into the shelter. She screamed until the shelter doors closed. She screamed until she had no voice left. Outside, New Busan died. The Valori broadcast the massacre across every channel in the galaxy. They wanted everyone to see. They wanted everyone to be afraid. The video showed cities burning, people running, bodies lying in the streets. It showed Vellery soldiers laughing as they killed. On the UES Eternal Dawn, Admiral Yuna watched in silence. Her bridge crew stood around her, tears running down their faces. Commander Tyeen's hands were shaking with rage. 2.3 million people, someone whispered. They killed 2.3 million people. The Children's Hospital, another voice said. It never got built. Yuna said nothing. Her face was like stone. Her eyes were dry. She watched every second of the video without looking away. When it ended, the bridge was completely silent. Everyone waited for her to cry. Everyone waited for her to fall apart. Humans were emotional creatures. Everyone knew this. But Admiral Yuna did not cry. Instead, she smiled. It was a small smile, cold and ancient. It was the smile of something old and patient and very, very dangerous. It was the smile that humanity had hidden from the galaxy for 300 years. Commander. Tyon saw that smile and felt fear for the first time in his life. Not fear of the enemy. Fear of what his own species was about to become. Admiral. He asked carefully. Yuna turned to face her crew. When she spoke, her voice was soft and calm and absolutely terrifying. For 300 years we have been kind. We have been patient. We have smiled and talked and made peace with creatures who saw our kindness as weakness. She paused. No more. She pressed a button on her command chair. Across the galaxy, a signal went out to every human ship, every human colony, every human soldier who had been waiting and hoping they would never have to fight. This is Admiral Yuna of the United Earth Fleet. Authorization code Omega Black. Unseal all vaults. Wake all sleepers. Activate all protocols. She took a breath. They wanted to see what humans are capable of. Let's show them. She looked back at the stars she had loved all her life. They looked different now. They looked like targets. Finally, she whispered to herself, a reason to get really nasty. 3 weeks passed after the massacre of New Buzan. The galaxy watched and waited. The Valori expected humans to cry, to beg, to send diplomats asking for peace. Overlord Krovek sat on his throne and laughed every day. You see, he told his generals. They are frozen with fear. They do not know what to do. Soon they will send messengers offering surrender. But no messengers came. No tears were broadcast. No begging was heard. Earth was silent like a grave. Deep beneath the mountains of Korea, something was happening. General Dong-ho walked through tunnels that had not been opened in 400 years. The air was cold and dead. The walls were made of metal so thick that nothing could break through. He was a big man with a scarred face and hands that had killed many enemies. But even he felt small in this place. Even he felt afraid of what he was about to unseal. Are you sure about this? Asked Colonel Shung-ho, walking beside him. These weapons were banned. We promised never to use them again. We promised never to use them on each other, Dong-ho said. The Valori are not us. They reached a massive door. It was covered in warning signs in every human language. Danger, death, do not open. Remember what we almost became. Dong-ho pressed his hand against the scanner. The door groaned and began to open slowly. Inside were weapons, not normal weapons. Not guns, or bombs, or ships. These were the things humanity had created during its darkest times. When humans had no enemies except each other, they had invented ways to destroy that made the galaxy's weapons look like children's toys. There were nanobots smaller than dust that could eat a person from the inside. There were viruses designed to drive minds insane. There were bombs that burned so hot they turned sand into glass. There were machines that felt no mercy and never stopped killing. Humanity had looked at these creations and felt shame. They had locked them away and sworn to be better. They had hidden their true face behind smiles and kindness. Now the masks were coming off. Wake them all, Dong-ho, commanded Commander. Kaon received his orders 1 week later. He stood in the hangar bay of the UES Eternal Dawn, looking at his crew. These were not the same people he had served with before. These were soldiers pulled from retirement, warriors who had fought in humanity's last internal wars, men and women with dead eyes and steady hands. Lieutenant Minji stepped forward. She was young, barely 30 years old, but her mind was the sharpest in the fleet. She had designed weapons that her commanders had called too cruel for a normal war. The attack plan is ready. Sir, she said, show me. Minji brought up a hologram of a Valori world called Dex 4. 16 million enemy soldiers waited there, ready to attack Earth. Traditional assault would cost us millions of lives, Minji explained. So we won't do a traditional assault. What will we do? Minji smiled. It was not a nice smile. We will send them a gift. 1 week later, a single probe appeared in orbit around this 4. It was small and harmless looking. The Valori soldiers laughed when they saw it. One probe against 16 million soldiers? The humans really were fools. The probe opened and released a cloud of dust into the atmosphere. The dust spread across the planet in less than an hour. It was invisible. It was odorless. It was absorbed through the skin. Then the screaming began. The nanobots rewired the brains of every Valori on the planet. They did not kill. That would be too kind. Instead, they created fear. Pure, endless, unstoppable terror. Every Valori soldier suddenly saw their worst nightmares come to life. They saw monsters in the shadows. They saw death in every corner. They felt horror so deep that their minds broke like glass. Some shot themselves. Some tore out their own eyes. Some ran until their hearts stopped. Some just screamed and screamed until they could not scream anymore. 16 million Valori died in 6 hours. Not from weapons. From feared Commander Taeyun watched the sensor readings from his ship. His face showed nothing, but his hands were trembling. It's done, Lieutenant Minji reported. Total neutralization. At what cost to us? 0 casualties. 1 probe. 12 hours. Taeyeon nodded slowly. This was the humanity that the galaxy had never seen. This was the species that had fought itself for thousands of years and survived. This was what kindness had been hiding all along. Broadcast it. Admiral Yuna's voice came through the communication channel. Let everyone see what we did. Let everyone understand what happens next. The video of Dex 4 spread across the galaxy in hours. Every species watched in horror. The Valori, who had never known fear, now saw their soldiers dying from fear itself. They saw their great army destroyed by dust at the end of the video. A message appeared in every language. New Busan sends its regards. Overlord Krovik watched the video 17 times. His red eyes burned with rage, but something else was growing inside him. Something he had never felt before: fear. What are they? He whispered. What have we awakened? His advisors had no answers. The species they had called weak. The species they had dismissed as prey. God. Just killed 16 million soldiers without losing a single fighter. How is this possible? What else could humans do? Meanwhile, on Earth, people gathered in the streets. Not to celebrate. Humans did not celebrate death, even the death of enemies. They gathered to mourn. They lit candles for New Busan. They held pictures of the dead. But in their eyes, something had changed. The softness was still there, but underneath it was steel. The kindness remained, but now it had teeth. General Dong Ho addressed the planet that night. His voice was broadcast to every human in the galaxy. We did not want this war, he said. We wanted peace. We wanted to farm our land and raise our children and live quietly among the stars. But peace requires 2 sides. The Valori chose war. Now they will learn why humanity survived when so many other species did not. He paused. We made these weapons when we only had each other to fight. Imagine what they can do to something we truly hate. Lieutenant Minji was already planning the next attack. She called it the kindness we kept hidden. It would be much worse than the first. The Galactic Assembly met an emergency session for the first time in 1,000 years. Representatives from 200 species filled the Great Hall. Their faces showed fear, confusion, and something close to panic. Ambassador Jisoo walked into the chamber alone. He was a thin man with glasses and a calm face. He wore a simple gray suit. He looked like a teacher, not a warrior. But every eye in the room followed him like he was carrying a bomb. "Ambassador," the speaker said with a shaking voice, "humanity has committed war crimes. You used weapons banned by 17 galactic treaties. You killed 16 million Valerie soldiers using biological weapons. This is against all laws of civilized war." Jisoo adjusted his glasses and smiled politely. "We never signed those treaties." "What?" "Your treaties. We never signed them. You never asked us to sign them. You'd never thought we were dangerous enough to include." The chamber erupted in shouting. Species that had looked down on humanity for centuries were suddenly realizing their mistake. They had ignored the quiet ones. They had dismissed the kind ones. Now those kind ones were killing millions without breaking a sweat. "This is genocide," the speaker screamed. Jesu's smile disappeared. His voice became cold, like winter ice. "No. Genocide is what the Valori did to New Busan. They killed 0.3 million civilians, families, children, old people who never held a weapon in their lives. That is genocide." He paused and looked around the room. "What we did on Next 4? That was pest control." Chamber went silent. No one knew what to say. Ambassador Jisoo turned and walked out without another word, far away. Admiral Yuna's fleet was cutting through Valori space like a knife through water. They did not attack every world. They did not burn every city. Humans were not wasteful. They were precise. Captain Sujin led the Psychological Operations Division. She was a woman with a gentle face and a mind that understood fear better than anyone alive. Her job was not to kill. Her job was to break spirits. "The Valori have conquered 40 species," she told her team. 40 species that have been slaves for thousands of years. They have been beaten down so hard, they have forgotten how to hope. "What do we do about it?" asked Agent Wanjin. He was a spy, a shadow walker, a man who could go anywhere and do anything without being seen. "We remind them how to fight." Messages began appearing on slave worlds across the Valori Empire. They were simple words in simple languages. Humanity remembers chains. We wore them once. We broke them. You can too. Weapons appeared in hidden places. Guns, bombs, communication devices. No one saw who put them there. Agent Wanjin and his team moved like ghosts through the Empire, arming the oppressed and teaching them how to use their new tools. Rebellions exploded across Valori space. Species that had been quiet for centuries suddenly rose up. They attacked their masters with weapons they did not know they had. They fought with hope they did not know they could feel. The Valori tried to crush the rebellions, but they could not. Every time they killed one rebel, 10 more appeared. Every time they destroyed one weapon cache, another was found. Humanity was everywhere and nowhere, feeding the fires of revolution. Overlord Krovik screamed at his generals. "Find the humans. Kill them. Stop this madness." But his generals had no answers. The humans were fighting a war the Valori had never seen before. It was not a war of ships and soldiers. It was a war of ideas. It was a war for hearts and minds. And the Valori were losing. Lieutenant Bomi worked in the engineering bay of the UES, Thunderchild. She was a small woman with oil on her hands and fire in her heart. She had lost her brother on New Busan. Now she spent every waking hour designing new ways to make the Valori suffer. Her latest creation sat on the table in front of her. It looked like a normal bomb, but it was not. "What does it do?" Commander Taeyon asked. "It destroys buildings but leaves people alive," Bomi explained. "It breaks their infrastructure, their factories, their power plants, their supply lines. But it does not kill. Why not kill?" Bomi's eyes were cold. "Killing them is mercy. Dead soldiers do not need food or medicine or shelter. Dead soldiers do not cry out for help. But injured soldiers? They need everything. They drain resources. They break morale. They remind everyone that humans could have killed them but chose something worse." Taeyon stared at the bomb. "You designed this." "I designed many things." Bomi's voice was quiet. My brother was a doctor. He built things that helped people. I build things that hurt people. We were different, but we both had the same hands. She picked up the bomb gently, like it was a baby. The Valori taught me that kindness without strength is meaningless. Now I teach them that strength without kindness is even worse. The remembrance bombs fell on Velour military bases across the sector. Thousands of soldiers survived, but they had no hospitals to heal them, no vehicles to transport them, no communication systems to call for help. They lay in the ruins of their bases and suffered. Some Valori officers chose suicide rather than face the slow death. Others begged for mercy, but mercy was not coming. Humanity had offered mercy before New Busan. That offer was no longer available, Admiral. Yuna watched the reports from her command chair. Her face showed no joy, no satisfaction. She did not enjoy this. No human enjoyed this. But enjoyment was not the point. How long until we reach Valerie Prime? She asked. 3 months at current speed, Taeyeon reported. Make it 2. Admiral, the crew needs rest. Even our soldiers have limits. Yuna turned to look at him. Her eyes were tired but determined. So did the people of New Busan. They hit their limits in 72 hours. Our crew can push a little harder. Taeyeon nodded. He understood. They all understood. This was not just war. This was a message being written in fire and blood. A message that would echo across the galaxy for 10,000 years. Do not touch humanity. Do not harm our people. Do not test our patience. Because when we stop being nice, the universe itself trembles. Valori Prime was a dark world. Its sky was always gray. Its cities were built from black stone and metal. For 10,000 years, it had been the heart of an empire that enslaved and destroyed. Now it was surrounded. Admiral Yuna's fleet hung in orbit like a crown of death. 200 human warships, each one carrying weapons that could crack planets. Behind them, dozens of ships from the freed slave species had joined. They had come not to fight, but to watch. They wanted to see the Valerie fall. Overlord Krovek stood in his palace and looked at the sky. He could see the human ships even without sensors. There were so many that they blocked out the stars. My lord, his last general said, we should surrender. There is no shame in silence. Kravek's voice shook with rage. We are Valori. We do not surrender. We do not kneel. We conquer or we die. Then we will die. Krovek turned and struck his general so hard that the man fell to the floor. Prepare the defenses. Call back every ship. We will make them pay for every inch of ground. The general crawled away to obey. He did not believe they could win. He did not believe anyone could win against what humanity had become. But he was Valerie, and Valerie followed orders. Instead of attacking, General Dongho sent an envoy. Dr. Nari was a small woman with kind eyes and a soft voice. She had spent her life studying alien minds, learning how they thought, understanding their fears and hopes. Her hologram appeared in Kravek's throne room. Overlord Kravek, she said politely, I am Dr. Nari of the United Earth Government. I am here to offer you a choice. Krovek laughed. A choice. You come to my world with your fleet and offer me a choice? Yes, Nari's voice remained calm. You can fight, and we will exterminate your entire species. We have weapons that will ensure no Valerie child is ever born again. Your history, your culture, your gods, all erased. The galaxy will forget you ever existed. Kravek's red eyes burned with anger. And our other option? Public execution of every individual who participated in the New Busan massacre. Reparations paid over 10,000 years. Your empire dissolved. Your military disbanded forever. And you will teach your children, generation after generation, what happens when you harm humanity. That is not a choice. That is slavery. Dr. Neri tilted her head. No, Overlord. Slavery is what you did to 40 species. This is mercy. The humankind. It comes with teeth, but it is still mercy. We are giving you a future. You can have children. You can have culture. You can have life. Just not power. Not anymore. Krovek stood up from his throne. He was huge, twice the size of any human. His scales were black as night. His claws could tear through metal. "You think I fear you?" he roared. "You think I fear your tiny species with your soft skin and weak bodies?" "You should," Nari said simply. "But I suspect you won't until it's too late. That seems to be a common problem with your kind. We will fight. We will destroy your fleet. We will burn Earth to ashes. And then we will hunt down every human in the galaxy?" "And that's enough," Nari interrupted. Her soft voice suddenly had steel in it. "We offered mercy. You chose death. Remember that, Overlord. In your final moments, remember that we gave you a chance." Her hologram disappeared. Kravik turned to his generals. "Battle stations. All ships engage. Show these humans what the Valori Empire can do." The Battle of Valor Prime lasted 9 days. On the first day, the Valor fleet charged forward with everything they had. 10,000 ships against 200. They expected to crush the humans with pure numbers. Admiral Yuna smiled and pressed a button. Weapon systems that humanity had hidden for centuries came online. Ships that looked small suddenly revealed guns that could crack moons. Missiles that moved faster than light cut through the Valori formation, like invisible knives. In the first hour, 3,000 Valori ships became fire and debris. On the second day, the Valori tried to retreat and regroup. Commander Tayen's strike force cut off their escape routes. His pilots flew like demons, fearless and precise. They did not waste a single shot. On the third day, Sergeant Junyuk led the first ground assault. His soldiers wore armor painted with the names of Nubasan's dead. They sang old war songs as they landed, hymns from Earth's ancient battles. The Valori defenders thought they had gone mad. Maybe they had. The fighting on the ground was brutal. Valori soldiers were bigger and stronger than humans. But humans did not fight fair. They used gas that blinded. They used sounds that caused pain. They used light that burned eyes. They used every dirty trick humanity had invented in 10,000 years of killing itself. On the 5th day, the Valori God Weapon was activated. It was a massive device at the heart of the planet, built to destroy entire star systems. Kravik thought it would end the war. Lieutenant Minji had predicted this. She had sent agents to the weapon years ago. When Kravik pressed the activation button, nothing happened. "Looking for this?" Minji's voice came through his communication system. She held up a small crystal. "Your God Weapon's core. We took it 3 years ago. We've been inside your empire for a long time, Overlord. You just never noticed." On the 7th day, the palace fell. Kravik fought until the end. He killed 17 human soldiers with his own claws. He refused to run. He refused to hide. When Sergeant Januk finally faced him, the Overlord was covered in blood, some human, some his own. "You fight well," Januk said. "Go." "Do you?" Kravik admitted. "Perhaps we underestimated your kind. Everyone does. That's why we win." Januk raised his weapon. "Any last words?" Kravik looked at the sky. The gray clouds were clearing. For the first time in centuries, the stars were visible over Valore Prime. His stars, his empire. Now falling apart around him. "Should have left your colony alone," he said quietly, as Januk agreed. "You really should have?" The shot echoed across the silent battlefield. Commander Taeyun broadcast Kravik's final moments to every screen in the galaxy. His voice was calm and clear. "Let this be the last lesson you ever need. Humanity asks for peace. Once, twice, perhaps 100 times. But eventually we stop asking." The transmission ended with an image of New Bysan's burning cities. Then the burning cities of Valori Prime. The galaxy understood the message perfectly. 1 year had passed since the fall of the Valori Empire. The galaxy was still learning how to breathe again. Ambassador Jisoo stood before the Galactic Assembly for the second time. The chamber was full, but the mood was different now. Before, the species had shouted at him with anger. Now they sat in complete silence, afraid to make a sound. "Many of you are afraid of us now," Jisoo began. His voice was soft, almost gentle. "Good fear keeps you polite." No one moved. No one breathed. "But I want you to understand something. Humanity did not enjoy what we did. We take no pride in destroying the Valori. We wanted none of this. We wanted to farm our worlds, raise our children, write our songs, and live peacefully among the stars. He paused and looked around the chamber. We wanted to be left alone. A delegate from a small species raised a trembling hand. Then why? Why did you do those things? The weapons. The cruelty. Why? Jisu's eyes softened with something like sadness. Because the Valori saw our kindness and thought it was weakness. They saw our patience and thought it was fear. They did not understand that kindness is a choice. Humanity chooses to be kind. We prefer it. But when forced, he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Will you use those weapons again? Another delegate asked. Only if we must, Jisu said. Only if someone makes the same mistake the Valori made. Only if someone harms our people and refuses to stop. He straightened his glasses. But I hope no one is that foolish. I truly do. We have had enough war to last us 1,000 lifetimes. On Earth, life was slowly returning to normal. Children went to school. Farmers planted their crops. Artists painted their pictures. The war had touched everyone, but humans were good at healing. They had done it many times before. Admiral Yune, now fleet commander of all human forces, stood on a beach in Korea. The water was calm. The sky was blue. Behind her, Commander Taeyun and the others, who had fought in the war, waited in silence. It's over, Taeyun said. Is it? Yuna asked. She was looking at the horizon, at the place where the sea met the sky. Or is it just beginning? What do you mean? The galaxy knows what we can do now. They know what we've been hiding. Before we were the kind ones, the harmless ones. Now we are monsters. Lieutenant Mingi offered. Yuna shook her head. Not monsters. Something worse. Something that can be kind when it wants to be, but chooses not to be when pushed. That's more frightening than any monster. Captain Sujin stepped forward. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe fear will keep us safe. Maybe Yuna agreed. Or maybe it will make everyone try to destroy us before we destroy them. And we will be ready. Sergeant Yuk said quietly. We were ready before. We will be ready again. Yuna turned to face her officers. These were the people who had fought beside her, who had killed and bled and sacrificed everything. They were not young anymore. The war had aged them all. I want you to promise me something, she said. Anything, Admiral. Promise me that we will try, that we will still reach out with open hands before we reach out with closed fists, that we will still offer peace before war, that we will still be kind, even though the galaxy now knows we don't have to be. One by one, her officers nodded. Kindness is a choice, Taeyeon said. You taught us that. We choose it. Yuna smiled. For the first time in a year, it was a warm smile. A real smile. The smile of the woman she had been before New Busan burned. Good, she said. Then maybe there's hope for us after all. Far away on the rebuilt world of New Busan, a memorial stood in the center of the capital city. It was a simple wall of black stone, covered with names. 2.3 million names. Every person who had died in the massacre. Hannah, Governor Hyjin's granddaughter, walked to the wall alone. She was 12 years old now. She had survived because her grandmother had pushed her toward the shelter. She had lived because Hyjin had died. In her hands, she carried flowers. Simple white flowers that grew all over New Busan. She placed them at the base of the wall, next to thousands of other flowers left by other survivors. Then she touched her grandmother's name on the stone. Her fingers traced the letters slowly, remembering, They paid for what they did, she whispered. But it doesn't bring you back. She stood there for a long time, just looking at the names. So many names. So many lives cut short. So many dreams that would never come true at the bottom of the wall. Carved in letters that glowed softly in the evening light was a single sentence. It had been written by Admiral Yuna herself. They chose to wake the sleeping dragon. The dragon chose not to go back to sleep. Hannah read those words and understood what they meant. Humanity had changed. The galaxy had changed. Nothing would ever be the same, but maybe that was okay. Maybe the galaxy needed to know that kindness was not weakness. Maybe it needed to learn that soft words could hide sharp claws. Maybe it needed to understand that the species who built hospitals and wrote songs could also build weapons and write death sentences. Hannah turned away from the memorial and walked toward the new children's hospital. It had finally been built, 3 years late. It was named after her grandmother. Every year it saved thousands of lives. That was the truth about humanity, Hannah realized. They could destroy, but they would rather heal. They could hate, but they would rather love. They could be monsters, but they would rather be kind. The difference was that now, everyone knew both sides existed. In the stars above, human ships patrolled the borders of their space. They carried weapons that could end worlds. But they also carried diplomats, doctors, teachers, and artists. They carried seeds for new gardens and plans for new buildings. They carried hope. They were ready for war, but they were praying for peace. And somewhere in the galaxy, every species who might have thought about attacking humanity looked at the stars and remembered. What had happened to the Valori? They remembered, and they stayed very, very quiet. Some lessons only need to be taught once.